Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Stanisci of NLL Lacrosse Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate, leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google, Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Joining us now is here on Lacrosse Talk is Gary Groob and our very special guest, Troy Cordingley. A long career in lacrosse, a coach, a proud dad, even apparently, as he should be, wearing his daughter's jersey. Troy, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, gentlemen.
Let me ask you first, what got you involved in lacrosse? What was the bug that got you?
Well, I was 3 years old when I first started. My father got me in. We lived in a hotbed of lacrosse in Brampton, Ontario, and my neighbor played it, and my father had never heard of it. Took me to the arena, and the rest is history. I've been there since I'm 3 years old, and once you get the bug and it's in your blood, it's there forever.
What can you remember? What it was that drew you as strong as it did?
I think it was just the competing. I was when I was a kid, well, still a little bit now, but I was a little bit hyper, and my parents wanted to find something for me to wear off some energy. So that's how I got involved, and then I just the compete part of it was huge for me, especially as a kid. You played your tail off, and it was just such a rewarding game, and it was physical. You could be as physical as you wanted, and it just that's what drew me to the game.
Well, Gary, I'll have a bunch of questions for you. I'll have a bunch of questions, and of course, as a player, you said you like the competition. As a player who led his team, what was the main focus for you there, and what kept you headed in that direction?
Well, I mean, you're only as strong as your team is only as strong as all 20 guys that you have on your team. And that, I was fortunate enough to play with some remarkable lacrosse players, and it was the compete thing again, where my teammates. I was trying to be better than my teammates, and that's what made us a really real good teams when we played, and so that I always wanted to be the best, and to be the best you got to beat the best, and even if they're on your team, you want to try to compete and stay at their level, and try to succeed it. So that was a thing that I always took into seasons and throughout.
Leadership by example. It's an important function.
You're exactly right. So, it is eyes are always on you. That's the biggest thing.
Okay, I'm getting cross-checked by Gary. He wants to ask you a question.
Now, where did you play your junior, Troy?
I played in Brampton, and then my last year junior, I went out to the West Coast and played in the British Columbia Lacrosse Association, and I played for Coquitlam. So my last year, we made it to the Minto Cup final, and then we played a powerhouse team, Paul and Gary Gates last year as well, and Tom Marichek, and the list goes on, and they were just so good. We lost to them in the final, so never got a chance to hoist the Minto Cup.
Right. Well, you made up for it with MSL and with Brampton and with Six Nations, hoisting a bunch of man cups. Yeah.
Yeah, that was okay. So
those were some pretty incredible teams. You want to talk a little bit about them?
Well, in Brampton, we won in 92 and 93, and basically, it was the Buffalo Bandit team that we had. We had a lot of guys that were playing for both, and it goes back to competing against the best players, on our team. Like we had Rich Kilgore, Darius Kilgore, John Tavares, Jim Veltman, the list goes on, and those are great guys to learn from and to play with and to compete with, and so again, I'm very fortunate to have done that.
So that makes a really easy transition when the MILL comes in and you get drafted to Buffalo in '93, and you basically have the same team around you, which would explain why that team was so exciting to watch. Let alone, I loved going to the Odd. I thought that place was just so loud. It was incredible. Probably the loudest horn I'd ever heard in my life. Was cool.
Yeah, I've got obviously some real fond memories of playing at the Odd. I think that was the loudest arena I've ever been in. When we won in '96, which was the last game ever to be played at the Odd, it was just so loud that I remember, Coach Bartley was trying to give us some instructions, and we're yelling back, we can't hear you, we can't hear you, and so anyways, it was extremely loud, that arena. It was almost like the fans were sitting on top of you. I remember the seats and the levels were so steep that they were right on your back.
Yeah, Dallas Elliott used to say that too when we had him on. He was talking about the spectrum and everybody right on top of you, and the lighting systems were different. So really, you were spot lit, and everything was the center of attention for everything.
Yes, yeah.
But those teams were amazing. Again, you talked about the Kilgores, JT, Veltman, you had Hamley, you had Keenan, Kevin Alexander. Those were just amazing teams. So really, I guess it wasn't that difficult to aspire to be just an absolutely superb player.
No, not too many guys get to play with their childhood heroes. Kevin Alexander was I went to watch him play in the Man Cup. I think it was in the early 80s, and Kevin was playing for Victoria, and I had never heard of him before, and then I seen him and watched him play, and it was just like he was like Wayne Gretzky to me. He was just so phenomenal, and then 10 years later, he's still playing. He's 40 years old, and he's still playing and still producing. And I got a chance to play with him. And I mean, that one season, and what is it, 8 games or whatever, I can't remember. I learned a ton from him that season, just how to carry yourself, how to be a real good teammate, like just things that, a young kid needs to learn quickly. And he was awesome. Like, he was great. And then, Derek Keenan was another veteran guy. And, we've seen what Derek's done in the NLL since, right? So, it was, and Bob Hamley as well. And those guys are veteran guys. And, it was a good mix.
Right.
The transition from one league to another, how did that go for you? And define it for us. Help us understand the difference between the two leagues at the time.
I think they were close. Obviously there's different rules, with box and then the Canadian box and then the MILL. But the biggest thing that I found was the speed of the MILL compared to the Canadian box league, and because of the rules, the game was faster and you had to play fast, and it was probably my first time. I had a chance to go to the US on a scholarship, but I never did it because there's hardly any kids that did it back then, and Paul and Gary did it, and they were very successful, and I think they were the main guys that every kid goes down there now from Canada. But it was the first time I played against American players, and the American defenders were the ones that I always paired up against. And I remember Brian Volker. He was just such a phenomenal, smart, intelligent defender, and he wasn't physical, but he always played my hands, and they were just very good athletes, and that was it took a little bit to adapt to it, and then but once you did, then you played at their speed and look for ways of beating them.
Yeah, the Canadians play more of a physical game, period. It's what they're into. It's we're kind of raised that way.
Yeah, we are, and I think that is with hockey, right? And when I played hockey, there was we could body check when we were 6 and 7 years old. Now, obviously, there's the rules where there's no body checking in that. So, but yeah, I think that was we were very physical, and that was part of our game plan. To be quite honest with you, we'd go into to places, Baltimore and New York, and be very physical, try to sort of intimidate them, and try to hopefully slow them down because they were so fast. We played Philadelphia. Philadelphia gave it back as much as we gave it. So,
Right.
they had some Canadian influence on their team, and their American players were tough characters.
Well, you're making them think a little bit about something other than what they normally think about. So,
Well,
a little bit of a distraction, right? Defensive
yeah,
distraction.
yeah, for sure. It was fun. I had Darius Kilgore on my line forever, and Darius was probably the one of the toughest that played, and just not talking about dropping the mitts, but just he was just physical, and he was mean, and when I played, I was 5'10", 165, but I played 6'2", 210, right? So because I knew I had him, had my back, and it was just the way it was.
Also, a lot of quick stick goals. Yes.
Yeah, he was good. He was good for sure.
Now, playing for Coach Bartley, talk about Les.
Unbelievable motivator. Les was ahead of his time. He started video back then, and and it was new to all of us, and why do we got to watch video and this and that, and now that's all we do is show video, and try to find just that one little weakness or whatever that make the difference in a game, because the teams are so evenly matched now. So Les was great. He was just, he was one of my favorite coaches. He would tell you when you messed up. But he was also, he was always had your back, and he was a really good motivator. He, the way he spoke in the dressing room, and before the game, during stretches, he'd always do the laps around, walking around, talking to each and every single guy. And, it was just, you knew that your coach cared. You knew your coach, yes, he wanted to win, and yes, he wanted to have the team succeed, but he always had your back.
Mm-hmm.
Winning is really important. About him and winning, it was actually a smart thing to do. It's easy to go to the I guess you could say the bully type part of being a coach, but if you can get the players on your side, speak to how important it is to have the respect of the coach in regards to having respect for the coach.
Right. So he just by him being and supporting us, right? Then you're willing, and it's not like, today I'm going to choose to play hard for the coach, right? It's not that way. It's you just don't question anything, basically, right? And you got 100% trust in your coach, and whatever your coach tells you to go upstairs and get him a hot dog with mustard on it, you better come back with mustard on it and hand deliver it to him, right? But you were willing to do that. That was the biggest thing with Coach Bartley. We wanted to please him. We wanted to show him that, I hate the saying, you scratch my back, we'll scratch your back. It's not, you know what I mean? But that's what we were doing. We played for each other. And that was a big thing too, is he was a big advocate of play for each other. Like, it takes all 15 of us, 16 of us to do what we need to do and to succeed. But, in the back of your mind, you're going like, I'm going to go through the wall for this coach.
Yeah. Right. You worked really hard, and I know he was well respected, and translating that for yourself as a coach, I mean, how hard was it to develop that kind of belief that you had the trust in the players and getting there?
Well, winning does a lot for you. and having really good goaltender will do that for you. Like, I just think, what he taught me, and even still today, I'm still coaching kids at the junior level, and the minor level is it's building relationships, right? it's tough though, because, especially with the men, when you have to make really tough decisions, and you've got a relationship with the player. It's like, it's a lot of people don't realize that it does more damage to a coach when you have a real good relationship with a player, but you have to make a tough decision, than it does to the player. And I've been on both sides of it, and it rips your, it rips your heart out. Like, it really truly does. It weighs on you. I know it weighed on me when you have to make tough decisions, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's, what I mean. Like, that's the biggest thing. But building relationships is key.
Last thing on this vein. So when you have your players, what do you hope that they think about you with what you've learned from Les, what you've executed on your own, and what you sound and look like? How do you see the players seeing you as a coach?
Well, I want them to know that I'm very passionate. I am a very passionate. I'm, not the calmest person sometimes, but I want to win at all costs. Like,
Mhm.
that is, that is my number one thing that I would love. Like, I just, and sometimes it's to a fault where, the fear of losing is, it's pretty draining, to be honest with you, right? Especially when you put so much time and effort, the whole team does, and you come up short. It kills you, like, it really does. And but just the passion, like, just the love for the game, and just and being a player's coach, like, many times that when I have coached, I want to have the players back. Like, I do have the players back. So that's a big thing.
Mhm. Now, you were there when it changed over from MILL to NLL, and we started getting individual ownerships. As a player, did it really change anything for you guys?
No, not really. I mean, just a little bit more money, to be quite honest with you. And then, with we had the Players Association that was involved prior to it becoming the NLL.
Mhm.
But lacrosse, it was lacrosse, right?
Mhm.
And I see now, though, like today, now that they're really, really honestly trying to make this a major league sport. And by just the things that they've done in the past, and I just think there's more professionalism in it, and there's people that have it, obviously invested interest in the game, but
Mhm.
but TV contracts, and bringing in some professional, like Don Koharski, who is a referee, the referee chief, or I don't, anyways, but I just see that we're making the right steps. I've been around since 93, and you hear every year, yeah, we want to get this full time, we want to be full time, we want to be full time, we want to be full time. And I understand, but that's 27 years, 29 years of hearing that and not seeing it. And now, just the last 3 or 4 years, um, I've noticed a big change.
Well,
Partnerships are everything.
mhm.
And to make a league successful, if you could speak to the partnership as a player, as a coach, and watching owners, and how important uh, ensuring that everyone gets something from the experience. Sometimes a little bit, for me, a little more can tend to not make the game any better, right? Like, there has to be this sharing process. I'm not asking what the sharing should look like, as I'm not
No,
involved in negotiations, but you get my question.
I do, and I do, and I've been on both sides of it. So, I get, as a player, to be, I in 93, I made $113 or 125, but $12 take off for tax, or I can't remember, but I remember my check was $113 per game. So, I'm playing in front of 16,000 people,
Mhm.
and I'm getting $113, right? Am I uh, upset about it? No, because that's what it took to start this. Do you
Right.
understand? And so I'm proud to be a pioneer, so to speak.
Mhm.
And but I do know, if we don't have the players, we don't have a league. If we don't have the owners, we don't have a league,
Mhm.
right? If we don't have the referees, we don't have a league. If we don't have, the coaching staffs, the G, like, so we like everything has to mesh, right? And I do see that. Yeah, there's some differences, but I see it more now than I have seen it in the past.
Again, I repeat, a partnership,
Yes.
and what that
Yep.
partnership means,
Yeah,
right?
and
And
it's so critical. So
yeah,
critical.
and it's important for everybody to have,
Yep.
willing participants being the players and referees and even the management of the teams, right? And the
Yep.
owners. You guys, they have to figure out a way to grow together, because and I think the NLL has done that, and so have other leagues. I think
Mhm.
players are in a more appreciated position today than they've been maybe from the beginning.
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, you know, bottom line comes down to, like, let's be honest, is what they're getting paid, right? That's the bottom line. Like, and if the players are happy being what they're paid and getting an equal share or whatever, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, but
That's critical, but it's also critical that the owners are, like, it's their money, and I mean, there's, like, it has to go both ways.
what we've learned on this show, and I don't know, I don't want to really get caught in going in the weeds and stuff, but essentially, we know, many of us know the history of the National Hockey League had the WHA. They were in
Yeah.
competition. Players had choices. Those choices meant, they could make more money in League A over B, or a B over A. They
Yeah.
had sort of competition for that. That's growing a little bit in lacrosse now as well.
Mhm.
We're hearing talk about leagues that don't want players who are signed to them playing for other teams. Troy, as a player and a coach and a guy who's been around lacrosse for a long time, how long do you think that's sustainable? Is that something that can last forever, where you have this competition, or do you see in the future, more of a cooperative, if you will?
Well, from what I see now, and I'm on the outside looking in here, I'm not part of either group, the decision makers and that, but I do see the NLL extending an arm and extending a hand, and they're two different types of lacrosse leagues,
Mhm.
but there could be some changes where both make both viable, to make both run to that, so that, because I mean, there's, and I want to go back to the American lacrosse player, but the American lacrosse players, um we need more of them in our league, like, because if we keep expanding, you know and these players, like, I mean, I'm watching a ton of NCAA lacrosse, and there's some unbelievable lacrosse players,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
but they're not given opportunity to play, the box game, right? And we need to find ways to allow them to play, whether it's a farm system or whatever it is. But having said it, having crossover schedules could be avoided.
Mhm.
Yeah, on this show, we're about lacrosse, and we appreciate the NLL because it's the big league that has really put the game on the map and has it on the map. But we don't forget also all the other leagues that make the contribution to the game itself. And you're very loyal and dedicated to the fact that you appreciate both the Canadian and American players, and that's something to remember. So, it's all about lacrosse as a whole getting better. How does it get better? And I think you've answered the question beautifully by saying there's a cooperative going on between the two teams. There's not two organizations or three organizations or four or five or six, that they
Right.
all work things out. We know that they do it in officiating. They try very hard to have a vertical set of rules so that, players know how to play the game everywhere.
Right. Right. So, I mean, and I mean, it's growing steps, obviously, but I think that we need to do it. We need to do it, and we need to do it all the time.
So, how did you get involved in coaching? We've heard about the playing. You had an injury that ended the career, and bang, into coaching you went.
Well, I was coaching before that. I was coaching minor kids. So my father has always said to me, and it's a message he still to this day repeats: give more than you take. Give more than you take. Give more than you take. And so I'm giving as much as I can, and it's just not like, oh, I'm an assistant GM in Buffalo, or I'm, you know what I mean. But I do a lot of the minor lacrosse stuff, and where, it's a lot of time and effort, and you're a volunteer in that, right? So I started when I was playing. I started coaching where I was living in Oakville, and was helping out, and did coach some teams with some fathers that had kids on the team, and they just asked if you could come out and help out. I was playing with the Bandits at the time, so I did, and then I liked it, and it was fun because it was fun for me because, one, I got to compete again. I got to compete in a different way,
Right.
and then obviously, you're coaching, and I want to be better than that coach. I want to out coach that coach. I want, like just the compete part
And
of
the
it.
challenge,
Right.
challenge. You're
Right.
really into the challenge.
Right.
That's what you
Well,
did when you were a 3-year-old, and you're still doing it now.
I know. And then, so I stuck with it, and then, I got hurt, and then, I played another, so I had surgery, and the doctor said I will never play again. And I
Ouch.
played 4 more years on my ankle, which I shouldn't have, but I did because I just love the game so much. And then after like that 4th year, like I was, I'll be honest with you, I was taking painkillers before and after games, and then
You
I
see,
just,
the doctor was right. It's like old man,
yeah.
father time and the doctors. Eventually, they're right.
Right. So then I knew it was time to move on, and then up here in Canada, Brooklyn Redmond, a major series lacrosse team asked me if I was interested, and I applied for the job, and I did it for 3 years. And then the first year, Darius Kilgore, he had a season-ending or career-ending injury as well. And he just asked me if I'd like to come and run the offense, and I said, yeah, absolutely, I would. And the rest is just just coaching, and that's about it.
Let's go back to the Redmen. There are a lot of teams that have the cachet that the Redmen have. Brampton, the Excelsiors. You talked about going out west and where you played out west talk about your experience in a lot of the lacrosse communities and what you take from all those different locations. What were the differences? What were the similarities? How important was it to experience that?
The well, I've like coaching wise, you are very aware of how important your volunteers are. Like, it's unbelievable because you get to see the behind the scenes stuff. And so in Brooklyn, like, I mean, they had an executive, and they had a list of volunteers, and, like, from people that were taking tickets at the front door to, making sure that there were security guards at the doors, people trying to sneak in and things, and just everything. Like, it was, you know what I mean? And it was the team off the floor. As a player, I never ever thought of that. I just thought, oh, we're the team, and that's it, right? The coaches, but you don't understand, the sponsorship, people trying to raise money for the team, and how hard they work during the off season, right? Like, running bingos and things like that. So that's a similarity between all of them. Like, they're all, they just had some really good people, and
What
good
it took,
people.
right?
Yeah,
What it took to have that happen, to be there.
Right, in order for the team to play, in order for the players, to have a place to play, right? So that was huge, and it's like that still to this day with MSL teams and junior A teams, and even in minor, like, it's just incredible. Moms and dads, everybody does their time, and to make things successful pretty well. And then, the differences were, there was, the culture. the culture in teams that, you always see the same teams somewhat in the finals, or, like just the winning culture, the message, things like that. And you learn as you go. And I remember my first year in Brooklyn and that, and I just wish I knew what I know now when I was there then. Right. Like and my dad used to always say, you can't buy experience. Like, you just cannot buy experience. You got to go out and get it. And, but that's a huge thing, is the culture of winning, and that's the high expectations, and that's the way it is.
You mentioned volunteers, and I just wanted to make sure that people out there understand to the extent that volunteers are necessary, and then you multiply it times 24 teams, of which a dozen are perennial competitors for the big trophy, if you will. So there's a lot of work, a lot of dedication, and it's a sport that, in my mind, is, it's like you said about the challenges and stuff. It's less about the money. It's more about the challenge and the community. We haven't talked with you about that, how important the lacrosse community is as a whole and within its individual groups.
Yeah, and that goes back to the Brooklyn, my first coaching gig with men. Like that's a huge community team. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Everybody supports it, and it's just a way for people to get together, and you have your ups and downs and things like that. But I mean, it's a great thing. And I mean, that's lacrosse, right? I mean, it's one of the sports that has that, right? And there's a lot of sports that don't have that, and they don't, lacrosse, it's a very tight knit community overall, but it's even tighter in your own community.
Absolutely. That's a big lesson that we've learned here. Like Orangeville, when people talk about sports, one of the towns they don't talk about is Orangeville. But if you talk lacrosse, Oshawa. If you talk lacrosse, you go to BC, there's 3 of the Salmon Bellies are there.
Yeah.
Gary is nuts about the Brampton Excelsiors.
Yep.
These within the lacrosse community, people don't appreciate how vaunted they are, how historic they are, really, how they have such a deep history. And for me, it's with the Toronto Beaches. I spent about a decade there calling games there. And
Yep.
and it's important, that lacrosse get better, because quite frankly, there's a lot of people out there who are ready to help get it better. And it's got a great foundation, I guess, is my point and what I was trying to get with you.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Agreed.
Now, you make it into Calgary as a head coach now. And I guess timing is everything, right?
Everything.
You're there just in time for the, win a championship.
There you go.
There's the compete level. Got to be the best.
Now we're talking about why. That's the, right? Why. That's it. That's why.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I loved Calgary, and it was just the perfect timing. You're correct. The first year I was there was 2008, and they had made the playoffs, and I think they finished last in the West Division, but they had a real good core, and we changed a few things around, and we were successful early, and then our captain gets a concussion, and he's out for most of the season, and Tracy Kluski. Our number one goalie, Steve Dietrich, he gets a concussion, and he's out. And I'm a firm believer that, there no excuses, but those guys are a big part of the team. And, we're new coaching staff. So we ended up starting at 3-7, and then we got them back, and we clawed our way, and then we made it to the Western Finals, and it was good to, and then we weren't successful. And then the next year, everybody came back, and everybody had a chip on their shoulder, and everybody was hungry. And as a coach, that's probably the best, because you just don't have to, they're motivated by themselves. And,
right.
And then we just had a phenomenal year, and Patty Campbell was our starting goalie, and halfway through the year, he had he was sick, and he had I think believe it's iliatis colitis he was diagnosed with, and so Matt King stepped in and played and was real good for us, and he was I mean, he was stopping everything. He just had a phenomenal year that year. And then when Patty came back, Patty's such a team guy. He just said, "You got to stick with Matt. He's so good. Like, he's doing really well." And Patty is probably one of the best teammates I've ever coached. And he was everything was about team. And then so we just rode Matt, and in the playoffs, we stepped it up another level in the playoffs, and it was real good. Like, it was the guys were were full value, and that whole year it was just everything fell, and we stayed healthy was a key thing too.
Right.
Yeah, when the thing of it is once you get a team as a coach tasting it, when they can taste it, and now they develop that appetite for winning, on top of believing that they got to point A and B's not that far away.
Right.
That's a great thing for a coach to work with.
Yeah, it is. And there were some veteran guys there that were just phenomenal in the dressing room, and that makes a coach's job so much easier.
Sure.
Caleb Toth, he was just unbelievable. Andrew McBride, and I'm going to miss a lot of guys because memory isn't as good as it used to be, but you know what I mean? Like, they were just great leaders, and they spoke when they needed to speak, and they always had the coach's back, and you know what I mean? It was just, and everybody we were all together. Like, we pulled the rope same direction, and when you do that, things work out for you.
Right. The sweet thing is, you're not a winner until you are.
Right. So,
well, double culminates for you.
Guys are winners.
Yeah, because you won the Coach of the Year that year, so you got the Les Bartley Award.
Yeah.
So now you have that one going on, the best coach too.
Well,
how did that feel? That Bartley thing.
I really have a problem with the Coach of the Year, to be quite honest with you, because it says Coach of the Year. First off, it's a team award, because if we're 8-8 that year, and I could have done 1,000 more things and worked harder or whatever, and you don't win the Coach of the Year award, right? Like, you know what I mean? And then Terry Sanderson and Dave Pym were phenomenal. Like, they both, one ran a D, one ran the offense. And so why is it coach? It should be staff of the year, or
coaches,
whatever. Like, because you got our trainers keeping the players healthy. We got the equipment guy making sure, you know what I mean? Like, and it just, I mean, anyways. So,
but that's why the acceptance speech is there, so that you can remind everybody about that, right? I mean, accept the award, my friend. You worked hard for it. You deserved it. I'm not saying anybody else didn't, but Coach of the Year is Coach of the Year. I mean, you're the one. You're the one with the name on the cover, right? You're the guy with the name on the cover.
Yeah, but that's I would rather have them standing with me to accept.
And you can do that, and that's something you can do. And there's I'm not trying to argue with you that I'm not telling you you're wrong the way you're thinking. I agree with what you're saying, but what I'm saying is I'm being the devil's advocate here, and reminding you that there are coaches out there who do a real good job, but can't do it without the rest of all winning teams don't do it on the basis of one guy.
Exactly.
There's a guy in football here in Canada. His name's what's his name now? Let's see now. Is the GM of the Toronto Argonauts. Pinball Clemens. and he says, I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. I want the smartest people around me in the room. So that's what you're saying, and that's the truth, and you're 100% right. But I just want to sit here and remind you that you won the award because you're a good coach. And here's the most important thing that I can say to remind you why you won the award. You had good taste in coaches that you had working with you. Right. Those guys, by you picking them, they know already that you didn't. I got a personal thing when it comes to this. I could tell you a story. I have one as well that made me feel the way you do, but I worked my way through it. because quite frankly, you do a good job. And I like coaches of the year that they should have staff of the year, like you said, as well as coach.
Right.
There are some teams that have to deal with things that not just the coaches have to deal with. It's
Right.
like you said, injuries, right? Your goaltender goes. What do we do with teams that are coached by guys with those handicaps or gals?
Right. Right.
So you're right.
Good.
But you're going to accept it, okay? You were the coach of
I
the
already,
year.
I already
Did
did.
I wear you
Already did.
down? Did I wear you? I hope I
Nope.
wore you down. No,
No. It's all good.
I
All
didn't
good.
wear.
Anyways,
I didn't. think I would.
Jamie
He's
Darwin
right.
comes in, he buys the Toronto Rock, and they'd had a couple of weird years prior, and he tries to bring him back to notoriety, and he brings you and Terry over. What was that conversation like that convinced you to leave Calgary to come to Toronto? Granted, you live around the corner, but...
Well, no, I actually left Calgary prior to him buying the team and all that. I left Calgary because I had 2 3-year-old, or I had twins at 3 years old, and I had a 7-year-old boy and a 9-year-old daughter. So I was leaving my wife with 4 children every weekend.
Yikes.
And it was every weekend. And there was my home game was 5-hour flight away. And what made it bearable the last year was we were winning. So there was no motivation. Like, it was just like, that was the motivation of get on a plane and do this, let's do this and that. And then as the year progressed, and I was tired too. I was tired. I'm a school teacher. So my schedule would be, I work Monday to Friday. I get on a flight at 5:30. I mean, flight to Calgary, land there at 7:30, which is 9:30 really our time, Eastern time. Go to practice, have video session. It was just go.
Right.
Go to bed. I'd be in bed at 1, which is 3 our time. Get up at 7:30 to shoot around. Like, it was just go, and play the game and fly home at 7 a.m. the next morning and get home at 2, our time. And then now we got to spend time with the kids, right? Because at that time, there's 4 kids and, my wife's pretty tired. And so then it was just, it was but it was fun. Like, it was real fun. But I just couldn't do it anymore. And I was glad that we won so that it made the decision.
There you go. That's the question I was going to ask. That was the safety valve.
Yeah. So we won and it was so, and then I did get a phone call from Jamie, probably a couple weeks later, asking me, wanted to talk to me, and he asked me if I wanted to coach and be GM, and I just said to him, I'm not ready to be a GM. I just want to coach. That's all I want to do is coach. But I said, I know the best GM around. And then him and Terry spoke, and the rest is history. The rest is history. Terry, he went in there and we won. We made it to the finals the first year and won the next year. And I'm
should have won both years, in my opinion.
Well, and I know. Well,
hard.
I mean, yeah, it was a tough one, but Terry went in there and he had a plan, and he broke that team down and brought in some guys, and he was such a great mind on character players, just unbelievable. And I learned so much off of him, and we were successful in 2011, and it was because of him. He was just so good at his craft. He just knew the players, and he knew. And Terry never really worried about talent. He never worried ever about talent. He was worried about integrity and character. And
well, his first move was getting Colin Doyle back, wasn't it? So you're talking about the key of characters right there.
Right, and Colin and a pretty good leader, right? So yeah. So anyway, so that's how that whole story happened.
How important was it? Because the Rock had a really good reputation before you came too. Earlier in their history, right? And it was something that you guys were able to build on. it's tough to win for a very long time.
Yeah, well, it is. It's. I mean, I always say if you win one, you're a good team. But if you can win back to back, you're a great team. Or 2 out of 3 years, or whatever. But let's not forget who the leader of those Toronto teams were. Like, it was Les Bartlett,
Yep.
right? And then they had Jim Veltman as their captain, and they had Ed Como and Derek Keenan, and look what they have done in the NLL, right? Like, that's some
Heavyweights,
great leadership, right? And those guys, like they're no slouch. They know the game inside out, and so going in, and it was an expectation too. It was we were right in the thick of things. I mean, everybody talks about playing hockey for the Maple Leafs or the Montreal Canadiens. There's a little bit of more pressure there than there is anywhere else, right? And there was pressure for you're right in the middle of Ontario lacrosse, right? So you want to do well, and you better do well.
See, that's where you could shoot me down on that discussion about Coach of the Year. You see, with all those people there, holy mackerel, right? All in one place, running a team. It's crazy.
Yeah, right. But I mean, I agree with you. You don't want yes men. You want smart men, and you want somebody to tell you when you're wrong.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's and I agree with you 1,000,000% that no one individual can run a team, and that's what that proves. You just highlighted importantly how a group can really overcome a lot if the group is tight and has their responsibilities and they're able to function and perform, right? Just like the players on the floor.
Yep, exactly.
Now Darius gets fired out of Buffalo.
You
technically get fired out of Toronto.
Yeah, not technically, I did.
Oh, you got fired. Yeah. I always thought it was kind of strange timing myself, but just as that job came open, you were able to get out of this one.
You're hired to get fired.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But you wind up in Buffalo as the coach, and you're part of Chugger's rebuild. And a little bit of growing pains in there, but he rights the ship, and you guys become a really good team.
Really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the first year we were there, we started 8-1. So we thought we were giant killers, and then we end up losing 9 in a row, and we had finished the season 8-10. But then we go into the playoffs, and we went into Toronto and upset them in their home rink, and then we went played Rochester at home the first game, and it was a best 2 out of 3 and beat them in the first game. And then the second game, Rochester, they were a better team than us then, and they beat us. And then they had that 10-minute mini game. I don't remember if you guys remember.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And
nobody was a fan of that.
Well, I mean, if there ever was, I didn't mind that time because I knew that Rochester was better than us, but it was just 10 minutes of playing if we could just sneak one out, right? Yeah. Anyways, we hit a post. I think it was Derek Sutton's hit a post, and then anyways, we ended up losing that game. Did we? I can't remember if it was overtime but anyways, we ended up losing by a goal, and so it was kind of a wake-up call for the guys, like, hey, like, we're not far off here. Right. And then the next year, we did okay, but I think we were put out the first round. And then the third year, things fell into place, and again, we were healthy throughout.
Right.
And then Anthony Cosmo was our goalie, and he was, and I'll say this, and everybody knows this, especially in NLL, you are not winning a championship if you do not have goaltending.
Yep.
You have to have goaltending. It's the most important position in the game of lacrosse, and Cos was real good for us. But we played an unbelievable Saskatchewan team, and we just couldn't get over the hump. We lost, I think, both games by a goal, but they were just real good.
Yeah. Now you finished coaching, and you wind up finally taking a position as an assistant GM, director of scouting. That's where you are now. How much of a change was that psychologically for you? Because now you're not right in the thick of it anymore.
Yeah, that it's still I still struggle with it a little bit. But what I don't miss is the pressure of the games. Like, I mean, I'm competitive and I want us to win, and I want us to win everything, right? Face offs and whatever else. Okay. But I want, I've learned so much from Steve, from Chugger, on trades and on evaluating players and contracts and just things that I've never really ever thought of, right? You're so fixated on my coaching and making sure this is covered and the power play and the short man and TV timeout play and the whole all of that goes with it, right? So I've learned a lot from Chugger, and so that that's the biggest difference. But there's lots of times where I want to jump in there and not that, like, I mean, JT is a phenomenal coach, and JT and Chugger and Eric Vince have done a phenomenal job with our team, like just real good stuff. And and there's a reason why JT is the best player that's ever played in this league. It's because he's so highly intelligent. He is so highly intelligent, and I will argue with anybody that JT is the best.
Now, this is your opportunity in this situation that we talked about, the negative, the part that you miss because of where you are and what you're doing. But now you get to give back to your family a little easier.
So what do you mean by that? Like, I get
no,
to go
like you get, you don't have the pressure, you don't have the constant pressure. Like you said, that it was too bad that you lost that ability to have that pressure. But now with that release of pressure, you have time with your family, your daughter. You can be a fan a little more now.
Oh yes, I've thoroughly enjoyed that. Unfortunately, the last 2 years of COVID's killed it a little bit. But this year, getting down to watch my daughter play has been a blessing, and it's been great. Like, it's just just to see what she's been doing and her team and that, and it's fun.
We only have a couple of minutes left. I want to talk about quickly about your daughter and Marilyn. They have a big game coming up. Just her career, because she's been a juggernaut too.
Yeah, she's smarter than me, I can tell you that. And she's a lot even keel. But yeah, she's had a great year. She's had 4 years at Hopkins and was coached by Janine Tucker, who is one of the best coaches, I believe, in NCAA history down there. And then she's now at Maryland, and Coach Reese, Kathy Reese, is she's a winner, and she knows how to win. And my daughter has been very fortunate to have two female role models like that, and she's enjoying the game.
And she's leaving with a heck of a degree too, right?
Yeah, she is. She's going to have a master's, which is great. Which, if there's anything good about that, the COVID stuff going on, but she gets an extra year. That's why she's at Maryland, and hopefully things work out for her.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time with us. I know you guys have a big game on Saturday, playing Albany. Good luck. Best of luck to it. You guys have a great team, and it should be a lot of fun, this playoff series.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's our league is, I mean, I look at the teams in our league, and there's not much difference, and it's fun to be a part of. But we're in it to win it, right?
Exactly.
Right.
But again, I'm so happy that you took the time. Thank you so much, Troy.
Yeah, guys, thanks. I really appreciate it, and I really had fun.
Yeah, Troy, I thank you too, and wish your daughter all the best, and I hope you get out of lacrosse what I think you deserve, and being a passenger to the game when it comes to your daughter and other things. Thanks for your contribution. We've really seen the full circle of life in lacrosse talking to you today.
Awesome. Thanks, Frank. Thanks,
all
Gary.
Right, buddy.
Take care, guys.
All right.
Have a good one.
For Troy and Gary, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching NLL Lacrosse Talk, seen live Thursdays at 4 p.m. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Lacrosse Talk news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next week.